What's up, y'all? Polo Sports Talk and Entertainment. Here again with another one. Make sure you hit that like button. Subscribe to the channel if you're not a member. And also hit the notifications so that you're able to get each and every one of my videos. Okay? The way that I'm going to approach this is is on a it's on a whole nother level, because whenever I talk about the greats, when we talk about Jordan, or when we talk about when we talk about Wilt, or when we talk about Kareem, Isaiah, Magic, um, you know, Kobe, and I talk about them like just solo, I don't want to disrespect the game in any type of way, because me saying something incorrect, or me disrespecting what they've done, I take that, very seriously. Now, look, Skip, while I'm a Michael Jordan fan too, and he is, but he loved Michael Jordan to the point where, if you say just one thing like out of whack, it's like he has this sexual vendetta with Michael Jordan. Pause. You know what I'm saying? It's like he's really, how they call, dick riders and everything. He truly is. That's what he is. Look, I'm a Michael Jordan fan, but I'm not a fanatic, and I'm objective. Skip does not know how to be objective. But see, my problem that I have with Skip is that when you become subjective to the point where you disrespect the great Kareem Abdul-Jabbar, I have a problem with that. I have a great problem with that. Okay. Now, this is what Skip said that, uh, well, pretty much how it all started, y'all, is when on Undisputed, Skip and Shannon were talking about what D Wade has said, pretty much how, the generation, that's going to come in the future is eventually going to forget about Michael Jordan, like they did, or like they've done with Kareem, you know. And while I agree with Dwayne Wade to a certain extent, you know, Skip made it seem as if though the as if, Kareem was just like pretty much wasn't that great. You should have seen his facial expression when you were talking about the uh, when he was talking about the Los Angeles Lakers, and he made it seem as if though, Kareem was did not impact that franchise at all. And he also said this is another thing that he said. He said that Kareem was not uh, a leader. You know what I'm saying? And he made it seem as if though Magic Johnson was just the end all be all. You know what I'm saying? Now look, I respect the hell out of Magic Johnson. Of course, I do. You know what I'm saying? But see, the thing about it is that Skip he drives what the media wants him to do and say, which is to down talk LeBron to the point where it irks his nerves, just to the point where he's just forced to give him credit, which is being subjective like always. And then also, it's like Jordan can do no wrong. Jordan never made any mistake. Jordan never had any flaws. Kareem, what you don't know, okay, this is the first thing that I'm gonna go ahead and I'm gonna tackle, debunk, whatever you want to call it. All right. He said he covered the Lakers, okay, in those years in '77. Okay, when Kareem had got there, okay, before Kareem had got there, the Lakers record were 30-52. Okay, they were 30-52. They were a horrible team. I mean, they had talent. I think the most talented guy uh, that some people would say is Gail Goodrich. Okay, and the reason why is because he averaged 22.6. Um, but you had guys on there that were pretty much past their prime. Connie Hawkins was already he was older. You know what I'm saying? He had only had 8 points. I know about Connie Hawkins because my uncle used to talk about Connie Hawkins, Dr. J, and David Thompson. You know what I'm saying? And I'm going to talk about that later. But you can't really name any of those guys on that squad unless you really truly are a basketball head. And a lot of these guys wouldn't even know who Lucius Allen was. Uh, Jim Price. I'm pretty sure Tura wouldn't. And shout out to Tura for TV because he's talked about this in a sense, but I wanted to go deeper in terms of how he disrespected Kareem. Okay, now before Kareem had got there, the Lakers, the 74-75 Lakers, were 30-52. Okay, now he made a statement and he said, "Well, they didn't make the playoffs their first year. Yeah, that's true. But guess what their record was? Their record had improved to 40-52. I'm sorry about that, 40-42, which is a tremendous jump from what they were. Okay, no, they didn't make the playoffs their first year, but you want to talk about they weren't all that great. Okay, they might have not been, but you also have to take into account they didn't have what you would call, just this uh, great, you know, PG on the level of a Norm Nixon before he had arrived. Now Norm Nixon he was a really good point guard, really good PG or whatever. You know what I'm saying? But okay, he wasn't. Of course, he wasn't Magic. But when Storm and Norman had got there, they had improved. But I'm gonna talk about them in just a second because I want to point out something. When Kareem got there, let's not act like when in '75 and '76 he wasn't doing any type of work. He averaged 27 uh, 27.7 points per game, 16.9 rebounds, 52%, 53% from shooting from the field, and more importantly, what a lot of people don't really point out because they're so focused on just oh well, the points and all this other stuff. He was averaging 4.1 blocks to go along with 1.5 steals. Okay, so how can you sit up there and say and see he was one of the youngest guys on the team? Everybody, the majority of the team were in their 30s. Gail Goodrich was getting older. He was still solid. He was still always solid as always at 19.5. And the next best scorer was Lucius Allen. Other than that, they didn't have uh, what Skip is looking at Showtime Lakers. They didn't become the Showtime Lakers until after that 79 that 79 season. I'll get to that in just a second. All right. Okay. The very next year, he said 4 years. He said they weren't all that great. Okay. Yeah, they made the playoffs. They finished first. In the very next year, the coach was Jerry West. They were 53-29. That's pretty good considering that you know they still were work with what they were working with. You know what I'm saying? They still didn't have what you would say a dominant type of point guard, but Kareem nevertheless still solid at 26 points a game, 26.2 points a game, and 13.3 rebounds. And he averaged 3.2 blocks. You know what I'm saying? He probably went a point down a little bit, but he was still putting up solid numbers. You know what I'm saying? Now the very next year, okay, and I made a mistake because Norm Nixon he came in in 78. Sorry about that. 77, 78. Now, this is when they really started to kind of get somewhere. Now, their record was a little bit worse than the last year, but they still made the playoffs. And Kareem, you could see that they were on to something. This is another thing that a lot of people don't understand. People forget that Adrian Dantley was on the squad. People forget that he was on the squad. He was on there as well as Norm Nixon. They were on to something during that point in time. They had a nice little niche going on. Of course, Andrew and Dantley coming in already at 19.4, and Norm Nixon, uh, who I'm going to talk about Norm Nixon a little bit later because I don't think he gets a lot of credit for what he did. He had some injuries later on in his career and stuff, but Norm Nixon was what you call a true point guard. If you really look at the point guard position, Kareem was still solid. His numbers still stayed consistent. Was at 25.8 points, 12.8 12.9 rebounds, and also 3 blocks. So why are you making it seem as if Kareem was not a driving force or a leader on that squad? Okay, listen, whether you wanna see him as a leader or not, he was a leader because he led by example. When he needed to get vocal, he would get vocal, but he wasn't the point guard. But you ask anybody when you talk about UCLA, when you talk about Power Memorial, when you talk about the Bucks teams, Kareem always was a dominant force in terms of leadership. And you see that Skip had tried to cut Shannon off or cut him short when he was saying, he was a monster his first 12 years. He was still a monster. He was a monster even when in his later years. But I'll get to that, a little bit later, and probably in a separate video because we're talking about this right now. Now, this is what. Hold on one second. Okay, now in '79 and '80, that's where Skip wanted to talk about, and talking about Magic Johnson had came in and just, oh yeah, he was just like, the the pretty much, the savior. Okay, you could look at it like that because they did win that championship. They had that championship in '79 and '80 or whatnot. Yeah, wonderful accomplishment. Yes, that was great and everything. But what 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 Skip doesn't want to talk about is Magic struggles in the playoffs during that time. Okay, Magic struggled when they had called him, of course, Tragic Johnson. You know, during that time when he choked in '84. Okay, because we got to keep the same energy with Kareem, just like, what I'm saying. You got to keep the same. You got to keep the same energy with Magic, just like you got to keep the same energy with Kareem. Magic has struggled in the '84 finals. Okay, of course, we all know the Tragic Johnson. For those of y'all that don't know about that Tragic Johnson situation, it was because he made two crucial errors when he committed when in the '80 in Game 4. Okay, and then on top of that, he missed the two free throws or whatever. You know what I'm saying? So uh, don't act like Magic did not have his flaws. Okay. Now Kareem, he struggled too because uh he struggled in that finals um against Boston against the Celtics. Um, you know, see, the thing about it is when he has struggled during that time, like, understand this, he took it personal. Everybody had criticized him. Everybody was saying, how, horrible he played and everything. And guess what? Kareem didn't say anything. Kareem was frustrated. Kareem Kareem took it personal, and guess what? He was able to come back and be even better. The very next season, he piped down and did what was necessary or whatever. You know what I'm saying? Now I know that because we also got to realize that he had some adversity too because he got hurt too. You know what I'm saying? And that's where, okay, yes, Skip was probably looking at that, um, how when Magic had took over and played center and everything like that. But that's what you're supposed to do. You know what I'm saying? That's what they did in the '80s. You know, um, hold on one second, y'all. That's what that's what you were supposed to do. Uh, because he got hurt in '80 or whatever, and he stepped in and played center and everything. And that was I remember my uncle telling me that because that was against us, that was against the Sixers or whatever. You know what I'm saying? And you know, well, I was happy that we got him in '83. But anyways, I'm gonna talk about that. I'm jumping all over the place. But my point that I'm trying to make here, man, is that for them to sit up here, for Skip to sit up here and say that that Magic, like he wasn't the leader and all this, Kareem wasn't this and Kareem wasn't that. Kareem stepped aside, and Kareem was like, "Look, he did what was necessary for the betterment of the team." Kareem led by example, but let's not act like his points still were not productive. You know what I'm saying? You want to say, "Oh yeah," as much admiration as I have for Kareem and all this other stuff. Dog, do you not realize that how difficult it was to stop a guy like a Kareem Abdul-Jabbar? Do you not realize that? I don't think people quite understand the magnitude of how difficult it was, even as Kareem had got older. I don't think people quite understand the degree of difficulty that it took to um, handle a guy like a Kareem, you know. But there you go. You have a guy like Skip Bayless who sits up there and downplays pretty much everything that this guy has given to the game. That's why it's taken pretty much what 40 years. It's taken 40 years for anybody to even try to attempt to even try to get the record. And now, of course, LeBron is on pace to do that. Okay. You know, everybody sits up here and well, I'm not gonna say everybody. Pretty much, it's Skip. He sits up here and he act like okay, Magic never had any type of flaws or anything like that, which is really not the case. He was always consistent. That's the thing that you have to understand about a guy like a Kareem. Okay. Um, you know, look, maybe maybe me just going by the numbers and everything, that's not telling enough. But his numbers did tell a lot. You know what I'm saying? Because let's just go ahead and let's go further down into the '80s, right? Now, of course, in '85 and '86, he really. people were disappointed in him and everything, right? But like I said, he came back in '87 and was still able to pretty much be the dominant force that he needed to be. I mean, putting up magnificent numbers. I mean, what okay, let's talk about that '87 finals. Okay, Thir let's see. Um, and we're just talking about with Boston because that's pretty much who he was waiting on. Okay, 14 the first game. Okay, 14 and 10. Second game, 23, 23 and 3. Third game, 27 and 6. Fourth game, 16 and 11. He also had to go along with 6 blocks too as well. No, he had 4 blocks. Sorry about that. Then that fifth game, he had 18 and 7. Then the very final game, the final game, he had 32. He capped it off with an epic performance at 32 and 6. You know what I'm saying? Still solid at his age. That's what people aren't realizing. You know, um, and see, this is another thing. Now, part of leadership also is always, pretty much being there. That's what you could always count on Kareem. That was one of the things that was great about him was his pretty much his durability. So you're sitting up here and you're saying that okay, yeah, Kareem couldn't do this, Kareem couldn't do that, and all this other stuff. I think the reason why you truly don't like Kareem or have that because you're not going to say in his face you had every opportunity to talk to this guy. I don't know how many times, and the way you did that behind his back, man, was just really, really so. That's expected of you. You know, and I don't want to hear from people about, oh yeah, well, that's the media's job and all this other stuff. I don't want to hear none of that. I don't want to hear none of that because Skip Bayless is the type to sit up there and pretty much he'll downplay one guy. That's his MO. He'll downplay one guy and then uplift the other guy. You know what I'm saying? Like he never had any issues. You know what I'm saying? Listen, this is what you're not understanding about, Kareem and how old he was. Dog, he was 39 years old, still putting up significant numbers. He was still 40 years old, still putting up significant numbers. You know what I mean? Like, dog, he was still 40 years old, still getting up and down the court. Okay, 17.5 ain't that good, but hey, to be 38 and still be putting up 30, 33, 33. I'm sorry about that. To be putting up 24, I think 25.4 points, uh, and then just the year before that, because he put up 23.4, and then the year before that, when he was 38, he put up 22. You know what I'm saying? Like, don't sit up here and act like Kareem was just like some trash and Magic Johnson just never had any type of flaw, never made any mistakes. There were plenty of other guys that made mistakes on that squad that you know that we could talk about and stuff. But when you talk about leadership, dog, they wouldn't have been able to do win any of those finals if it had not been for Kareem and his presence. You know, I understand you. I understand that Skip loves Jordan. We know that. We know that Skip loves Jordan. That's that's inevitable. Okay, we know that. But I'm not going to sit up here and downplay one, one player like when it comes to like LeBron or something like that. You know what I'm saying? I won't just downplay LeBron just because I like Jordan better. I'm able to say I'm able to say like, okay, Jordan, what he wasn't the he had flaws too, just like anybody else. You know. Now, to me, Kareem's flaw had to do with his relationship with the media. But guess what? It was the same for Bill Russell. And think about it. Bill Russell and Kareem Abdul-Jabbar, they were all about the movement. They were all about our people. They were all about um, bringing forth change and stuff. You know what I'm saying? So of course your relationship with every single body is not going to be on the. He was real watchful of people, especially during that time or whatever. You know what I'm saying? You got to think about it too. You're going from you're in a society where racism exists and segregation and stuff like that. To okay, you going into the '80s, getting ready to be it was the cocaine headed into the crack era and stuff like that, where racism started to kind of, well, it was still existing and everything, but it wasn't like the '60s, and the '50s and all of that. It wasn't like that. So there were a lot of changes that everybody had to adapt to, and you're going to a place in LA where it's pretty much it's like a free spirit out in LA. Everybody gets along. It's all about peace. You know what I'm saying? All about that stuff. You know what I'm saying? You got to think about what was going on during that time. You had stuff like the um, you know Black Panther parties and a little bit before that, you know what I'm saying? You had the Vietnam War. There was in the '60s, the Watts riots had taken place. It was always riots everywhere and stuff like that. So it was a lot of stuff that was going on that Kareem felt real strongly about. He felt strongly about those things. So his demeanor is not going to be like everybody else's and stuff. So I just think that, Skip, he's full of shit with what he says, saying that wasn't a leader. Um, they're not gonna talk about Kareem as much as they talk about Jordan, because Jordan was more flashy. He was a guard. You know what I'm saying? Not everybody is gonna be 7 foot. You know what I'm saying? With a sky hood and with finesse, athletic ability. They're not everybody's not gonna be like that. Even with Jordan's case, not everybody's gonna be 6'5", 6'6", and could jump out of the gym, right? But the thing that you have to understand is like what Skip was not Skip, what Shannon had said and what he had alluded to, and I do agree with him on this, is that when it comes to a brand, Jordan always has a brand that will always stand out for years to come. We're talking about years, you know, and people are going to carry on that legacy. With Kareem, people are going to, they might touch on it every now and then, just like they doing now, if you find somebody doing a hook shot or something like that, they'll look at you, they'll look at you like you're crazy or something like that. You know what I'm saying? It's kind of like, it's it's grandfatherish or something like that. You know what I'm saying? When really, in essence, you should be paying attention to some of the stuff that Kareem did bring to the game or whatever. Understand how lethal he was on the defensive side of the ball. He just did his job and did what was necessary. There were also a lot of changes and stuff like that in terms of the NBA too that were going on, because you got to realize they outlawed the dunk because of him and Will Chamberlain. So Skip will say anything just to get the ratings. Him saying that, oh yeah, well, you know, Kareem. But see, I think that Kareem probably rubbed him the wrong way, and now he feels some type of way about it. That's what I really truly think it is, because he was just straight up disrespectful when it came to Kareem, much like a lot of other people are. You know what I'm saying? Now, okay, do I agree with some of the things that Kareem has said as of late, and concerning the jab and all of that? No. But that's just me. That's just how I feel. You know. So y'all let me know what you think, man. Hope you enjoyed this, man. Uh, Leave your comments, like the video, share it, subscribe, hit the notification. Polo Sports Talking Entertainment, man. I'll get at y'all later.